The schoolyard was alive with noise, kids rushing to their buses, laughter echoing in every corner. But in the middle of the crowd stood two sisters, their worn-out backpacks slung over their shoulders. They were twins, Lila and Grace, and everyone knew them as the farm girls. Their clothes were plain, their hands rough from chores, and their shoes covered in dirt from the fields. For some kids, that was enough to make them a target. As the twins walked across the yard, a group of older boys blocked their path. Well, the farm twins. One sneered. "Did you milk the cows before school or after?" His friends roared with laughter. Another boy pointed at their faded dresses and shouted, "Hey, maybe we should get them some real clothes instead of potato sacks." The laughter grew louder. Lila's face flushed, and Grace clutched her sister's hand tightly. They were used to it. But the sting never went away. Every day was the same. Snickers in the hallways, cruel whispers, lunch trays, accidentally knocked over. The bullies loved to remind them they didn't belong, that they were just poor farm girls from the edge of town. But what no one knew was that the twins carried a secret. They had grown up tougher than anyone could imagine. Back home, life wasn't easy. Their father had passed away when they were young, and their mother worked endlessly to keep the farm alive. That meant Lila and Grace weren't just students. They were also farmers, mechanics, and protectors of the land. They hauled hay, fixed fences, and handled livestock bigger than any bully at school. Their bodies grew strong from work, their minds sharp from solving problems that no textbook could teach. But at school, none of that mattered. All anyone saw were farm girls to laugh at. One Friday afternoon, the bullying went too far. The twins were eating quietly in the cafeteria when the same group of boys surrounded their table. Without warning, one grabbed Lila's lunch and dumped it on the floor. "Oops, clumsy cow," he laughed. Another shoved Grace's shoulder hard enough to nearly knock her off her chair. The cafeteria erupted with laughter, and phones came out to record. Lila's fists clenched. Grace's jaw tightened. But they stayed quiet. They didn't want to cause trouble. But the bullies mistook silence for weakness. After school, they followed the twins outside, cornering them by the bike racks. "Where's your tractor, farm girls?" one mocked. Another sneered, "Maybe we should teach them a lesson about respect." The boys moved closer, smirking, ready to humiliate them again. That's when Lila finally spoke, her voice steady. "You really don't want to do this." The boys laughed harder. "Or what? You gonna cry on us?" one said. Grace stepped forward, her eyes locked on theirs. "No. But you might." The first boy reached out to shove her, and that was his mistake. Grace moved faster than anyone expected, catching his wrist and twisting it until he yelped in pain. Before the others could react, Lila stepped in, sweeping another boy's leg and sending him crashing to the ground. The bullies who had laughed moments earlier now cried out in shock. They scrambled, but the twins weren't finished. Years of farm work had given them strength, and months of self-defense classes their mother insisted on had given them skill. Within seconds, the bullies were the ones begging for mercy. One clutched his arm, another groaned on the ground, and the leader scrambled back, his bravado shattered. "Stop, stop," he shouted, holding up his hands. The twins stood over them, not gloating, not smiling, just calm, their breath steady. Lila spoke firmly. "We don't want to hurt anyone. But we won't let you treat us like trash anymore." Grace added, her voice cold but clear, "Next time you think of laughing at us, remember this moment." The boys staggered away, their pride broken, their laughter gone. The crowd that had gathered was silent, stunned. For the first time, the twins weren't the ones being laughed at. They were the ones everyone respected, even feared. That night at home, their mother listened as her daughters told her what happened. She didn't scold them. Instead, she smiled softly and said, "I told you. Strength isn't about fighting first. It's about standing tall when the moment comes." Lila and Grace finally understood. The next week at school, things were different. The bullies avoided them, whispers turned to admiration, and kids who once mocked them now looked at them with a mix of respect and caution. The twins walked side by side, heads held high, not because they were feared, but because they had finally shown the world who they really were. Their story became a reminder that appearances can deceive. People saw poor farm girls, but behind the faded clothes and rough hands were warriors forged by hardship, resilience, and love. The bullies laughed at them once, but in the end, it was the twins who had the last word. The lesson was clear: never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes the strongest people are those who've carried burdens you could never imagine. And when pushed too far, they'll stand with a power that makes the cruelest laughers scream for mercy.